past with other Boeing programs you've been involved with? And give us a sense of what makes Starliner unique and why it has taken this path to get to the launch pad. Thank you.
Design and development is really the phase that we have just come out of and are ending and going into operations. And design and development is like it's constant ups and downs, but the overall slope is always up. So that's where we've gotten to today. We're on the slope we're basically at the top of that slope and now starting to get into operations. It was typical on SLS, the program I was on previously, and then of course I was on shuttle for most of my career in the early days of operations, and it was almost similar, just because you're maturing in the life cycle of operations. So this program has been maturing over the last 10 years. It's pretty typical that a human spaceflight vehicle from design to flying humans is about a 10-year period, and that's where we are.
Okay, we also have Joey on the phone again from Reuters. Joey, can you hear us?
Yeah. This might be I don't know if somebody already said this or if I should already know this, but I'm just curious if someone can speak to how autonomous Starliner is in general. Like, can we put a percentage on that? Is it 100% autonomous? And then, what part of that could astronauts manually take control over in the event of a contingency with one of those systems? Thanks.
Okay, I can start. Well, first of all, it's fully autonomous. We have systems, or we have ability for the crew to take over control, and then we have an additional ability for what we call a backup flight case, where we can totally eliminate the flight computers and fly the vehicle manually. So it's a quite versatile vehicle, and it's designed to have these backup systems and to be a kind of crew-friendly vehicle. Steve, anything to add?
I mean, we demonstrated it is autonomous, right? Orbit Flight Test 2, we demonstrated that autonomous capability with no one on board, the vehicle autonomously launched, separated from the launch vehicle, from the Atlas V, got on orbit, did a series of rendezvous burns, got close to the space station, and then did the whole rendezvous profile with the software on board the vehicle and then the ground team monitoring it. So it is quite capable vehicle of autonomous flight, but it also, I think as Mark said, has a tremendous capability for the pilot to fly in various modes, and we're going to demonstrate some of those with Butch and Sunny during the flight in terms of doing some manual flying toward maneuvering and pointing the vehicle, and then once we get on the final approach to the space station, when we get up on that final phase, Butch will make some command inputs and demonstrate the ability to fly Starliner manually. So,
thank you, Mark and Steve. All right, I think there's some more in the room here. Yeah, let's. Who's going to get to him first?
Jeff Faust of Space News again. Question probably for Steve. We had a passing reference earlier to abort weather. What differences, if any, are there in the abort weather constraints for Starliner versus Crew Dragon?
Yeah, good question, Jeff. I would say the abort weather constraints are very similar. Let's just start at the launch pad. We have a criteria we want, if something should happen to the launch vehicle, which we don't expect it to happen in a contingency, the spacecraft can separate, Starliner can separate and then land in the water. So there's a onshore wind component we've got to go look at. So far that's looking really good. And then up the East Coast we have a criteria for abort weather, and so far that's looking fairly favorable. The only differences between Starliner and Dragon are really the staging points are a little bit different. The Atlas first stage, it takes a little bit longer to burn out, and so that staging point's a little further north than for Dragon and Falcon 9. But basically, it's very similar criteria. We're looking at sea states, precipitation, winds at splashdown points, and looking at the overall risk of that for the ascent corridor.
Thank you, Jeff. Marcia, right behind you. Danielle.
Marcia Dunn, AP for Steve, probably. If you launch on the 6th and you dock on the 8th, what's your working date for landing? I mean, what's the earliest you could land? What date would that be?
Yeah, the earliest date right now would be around May 15th. So, and that's the essentially the first opportunity after the 8 days, right? We assume we need about 8 days when we look at all the mission objectives that we plan to go do. And so it's around the 15th, but we'll have to look at the weather, and we're also going to look at how things are going in the mission. Is there anything we want to learn? One of the beauties of the manifest that we've executed so far this year is we've laid out this pretty clear summer on ISS to where if we need to stay a little longer, we can at ISS. So, but the 15th is about the first day.
I mean,
we'd have to look at that. We've got, opportunities that are ascending, which is a day landing, and then like the 17th, a day later, it would be a night landing, descending. So, we'll look at the weather. The weather may be a little bit more favorable in the desert after sunset. So we'll look at that, and the descending may be a little bit better. So.
Okay, we'll go back to the phones. We have David Curley, full throttle.
Thanks very much. Mark Nappy, with all due respect, 4.5 years ago plus, we were talking about who was going to capture the flag. You talked about the program maturing. You've gotten there. Can you put a little perspective in that? And since the last time we talked about the long-term future of Starliner, have you had any internal discussions at Boeing, and have any decisions moved closer as to how long the spacecraft will operate? Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure how to answer your question about maturing. We are to a state now where we are ready to perform the test flight. And I've never felt readier on any mission that I've ever participated in. We are fully aligned with NASA and ULA, and this is a very clean, it's been a very clean last month. So we're mature, we're where we're supposed to be at this point. As far as long-term, yes, we've been working on the long-term plans for Starliner since the 2 years I've been on the program. And there's a number of areas that we had to go look at. Do we need additional spacecrafts? What are we going to do when we transition the vehicle? When are we going to transition the vehicle? And we've knocked a couple of those questions off. What I can tell you is that we have 6 flights to fly with NASA on this contract. That takes us out to the end of the decade. And what we do after that, we have time to make those decisions based on the International Space Station, based on the other space stations that may be put into orbit after that. Those are all things that we need to consider as we go forward.
Okay, last call for questions here in the room. One right here.
John Tilko with Aerospace America. For either Steve or Dana, are you looking at any scenarios to increase the cadence of flights to the ISS, maybe go with shorter crew durations to enable more crews on orbit, as well as up the use of the vehicles for more than just once per year?
Dana, why don't you take that?
Let's see. Yeah, I'll start with that one. We're not going to change the duration of our crewed flights. Our plan is to continue with our 6-month crewed flights, but I know you've seen us do this. We've got private astronaut missions that have a shorter duration. Our intention is to continue supporting the private astronaut missions. Those right now are around 2 weeks long, and of course we run into weather. Sometimes they can be a little bit longer. So we'll continue to try to fit in as many of those missions as we can, but no plans right now to change our crew intervals.
And right now I would add those 6-month flights, it seems about right for that increment relative to when we can get vehicles ready and to go fly. And then also we're collecting, medical data on the crews, and the scientists really want some stable increments to collect that data. So they would like the 6 months to collect how does the crew perform and how do they readapt. And we've flown a few astronauts and cosmonauts out to a year to collect data from Mars. And so some of the data is really driven by maybe the 6 to 1 year duration versus getting those shorter duration medical data. So.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Not seeing hands here in the room, we'll go back to the phone. Joey, take it away.
Hi, thank you. Quick one for Gary or Mark. It's been said that crew rating Vulcan should be pretty easy given its similarities to Atlas. And I was just wondering if you could give a ballpark on how much you think that would cost to crew rate Vulcan given the ease, and who would be the ones paying for that? Would that be ULA, Boeing, or NASA? Thanks.
Gary, how much is it going to cost?
I don't know that we're really prepared to give an exact figure at this point, Joey. We definitely are leveraging all the efforts that we've made to date on Atlas, and we'll work with Boeing to determine there may be some unique requirements that are brought forward that we need to consider, and we'd have to factor that in. But it's using a lot of common hardware. It's got the same RL10 upper stage capabilities. We'd have a new BE4. We'd have to look at that and some of the hazards that are encompassed around that configuration of a vehicle. But whether it's faired or unfaired, those are things that we'd have to work with NASA on the requirements. But
And I'll just add, we have been working with Gary and ULA on what it would take to use a Vulcan for additional flights after the 6. And that's what we've been working on for the last year and a half or so, is just understanding what is it going to take. What does the cert flight look like? If we have to do one, what are the changes that have to be made? And so we have a pretty good understanding of that now, and we're just looking forward to making those decisions when it's time.
All right, well, thank you everyone for your questions, your interest in the Commercial Crew Program, in the mission that we're talking about today. As everyone said, we are go for a launch of NASA's Boeing crew flight test with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams. Again, liftoff is scheduled for 10:34 p.m. Eastern Time, and our live coverage on NASA TV, NASA Plus, and the agency's social media channels. That will begin 6:30 p.m. Eastern, again, Monday, May 6th. So we hope you can join us for this momentous, historic milestone, and have a great rest of your day.